Hey, kia ora
Hello,
koutou
family.
whānau. Hello, and welcome to 2023 with Big Hairy News with Big Hairy Chewy and Big Hairy Pat. Chewy, we're back.
Hello.
We're
I
back
am
again. We're back again.
I really enjoyed just the mild panic from both of us as the clock approached and we both realized that we'd forgotten how to do this.
Yeah,
I've forgotten how I had my screen set up.
Like I'm turning my phone off now.
Chat.
It should be already phoned off. That's now off. Make sure and I literally said, for people who are joining us, I literally said to Chewy, I'm like, shit, how do I start this again? Because I couldn't remember what I was doing. But I did. And I think we're here. Yeah, Ben, we know it's not 10 p.m. Ben just said it's not 10 p.m. I know, Ben, because we're doing it a bit differently to start the year. We're starting it at 9 p.m. And this is what we're going to do. For people who are new to us, hi, kia ora, welcome. We actually started this at 11 a.m. when we did it for the very first little time period, and then we moved it to midday. We might have even done a few at 1 p.m. and then we moved to 10 p.m. And we kind of stuck there for a wee while. And we're thinking about what we do for this year because we're still playing a little bit with what we're trying to do. Kia ora, Raywin. Kia ora, Simon. Good evening, everybody. I like the 9 o'clock time. There you go. It might be more accommodating to more people. Good luck.
That's the idea.
And Jonty's panicking because the sun's still out. What's all this about? The problem with that, Jonty, is here in Dunedin at 10 p.m. the sun's still out as well. So it doesn't really affect us quite so much as well. And to be honest, we talked about this with you guys who know us, who are close with us at the end of last year's show, starting to think about what we should do. And if we did make some changes, what they would be. And one of the changes was, if we were going to cut down the number of shows, would Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Friday be better or something? And the response we kind of got back, oh, look, my dog's locked out because my kids are playing PlayStation in the lounge, and so she can't come through the door, is that Monday to Thursday would be better. And we were like, what about the time? People were like, well, 10 o'clock's okay. 9 o'clock would be okay. So this is what we've decided at least to start the year with. We're 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday. That's what we're going to do. Now, I also think if we have any long form podcasts and conversations, then they will play on Fridays. So we've got kind of a slot on Fridays that if, for example, we do another James Hake or a Paula Penfold or a, whatever it is, then we'll put them up on Friday. So Monday to Thursday will be sort of your regular Big Hairy News show. Friday, there will be nothing planned. But if we get a long form interview, the kind of conversations that we said last year, we put behind the paywall. Then if we've got a big long one behind the paywall, then the shortened version will be up on a Friday night. The paywall for Patreon is what I'm talking about.
A very special episode, if you will.
Yes, a very, very special episode. And also perhaps, Chewy, if there is some appropriate stuff from other podcasts, because now I think I make...
Oh, that's a good idea.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I do 11 podcasts. Is that right? No, it's not right. People know...
27.
You got 27 podcasts. People know that I do a long form conversational podcast, but if there was a news commentary that worked in there, maybe we'd play it out at Friday night as well. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do for the immediate future, we are going to do 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday and then see how we go. So, Chewy, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good, man.
Are you showing off? You got a big hat game going on?
Your hat game is very strong.
It is.
And so that was task number one on my holidays, was to find something really good. And I thought I was doing pretty good with my gold alligator skin swag hat until one of my Facebook friends burned me to the fucking ground.
Yeah.
When he said that swag stood for so white and ginger.
Oh, yes. I like it. That's the name of your new, and we can announce right now, that's the name of Chewy's new podcast.
But I'm going to roll with it because the hat is too tight. Too legit to quit.
Yeah, so it's looking good. And let's talk a bit about where we've been over summer, because you've had a bit of a break. Do you want to tell the punters what you've been up to?
Yeah, man. As I said before, we went away for the first time in like 10 plus years. Didn't work Boxing Day. Immediately went out on leave and didn't feel bad about it. And we took off with the in-laws down to the Catlins. We stayed at the Whistling Frog down there and just went on bushwalks and just hung out on beaches and just chilled. And it was so good. So good. If any of you in the chat were in the North Island, I'm sorry, but it has been consistently amazing down here pretty much since Christmas. So
yeah, true. Actually, I mean, I hope people are okay.
Sorry about the hurricane or whatever.
You've got through the weather and stuff all right. It's been an interesting observation because obviously I grew up, I spent the first basically 42 years of my life. I had to get one of those out for the start of the year in Auckland, and holidayed in Mangawhai Heads in Northland for like 30-ish years. So know that region really well. And I was hearing them talk about Cyclone Bowler. They were talking about the storm that came through Northland this year was like, it's going to be as bad as Cyclone Bowler. I think Cyclone Bowler was 1988, so I would have been 12 or 13 or something. And during Mangawhai Heads, there's a lagoon at Mangawhai Heads, an estuary that's tidal. So it's got a estuary at low tide and it fills up completely at high tide. And on the seaside of it, there is sand dunes. So it's actually an enclosed harbour. And so what me and my cousin Michael did during Cyclone Bowler was took the catamaran out, Windrush 14, and blasted around the harbour during Cyclone Bowler. So when I think about Cyclone Bowler, I think about the best ever sailing I've done with my cousin as a 13-year-old in cyclone winds. So that was my memory of that anyway. So yeah, but if people are in the North Island, I hope you guys weren't hit too badly by it. And yeah, as Chewy says, it's a bit disgusting to hear someone else saying it, but it's just been like today again, no cloud sun for quite a while. There's been a few shitty days towards Christmas, but in general, it's been pretty bloody spectacular. In fact, I think Southland has had basically no rain, and I think Queenstown's had little enough that there's actually water shortages going on there, which is the other end of the spectrum. But yeah, been pretty good weather-wise. And so for people who don't know, Chewy, you basically the Catlins start about an hour south of Dunedin on the coast, and then go for about an hour.
It always feels like it's really far away, but then you're like, oh my god, this is on Dunedin's doorstep.
Yeah,
and I just love it because there's just areas there that regenerating native forest, or just straight up areas of like, this is what it used to be before settlers, just beach, dunes, forest, and then that's it. And I just love it. It's just good.
The Catlins is fascinating. Like, I grew up in the Waitakere Ranges in West Auckland, and the Catlins feels like the only place in the South Island that got that kind of, for want of a better word, North Island bush vibe. There's something a bit different about the bush and the Catlins compared to you don't get Pahutakawas in the South Island, which is a mind fuck for anyone from the North Island. It's the New Zealand Christmas tree. There are a few around, but they don't flower 3 weeks before Christmas, and you go, the Christmas trees are out. That doesn't happen. But the Catlins is one place that you look around, you kind of go, this feels, for me, growing up there, this kind of feels familiar to me. So,
like, I mean, one of the things that I'm very nerdy about is geology. I just find geology really interesting. And you get stuff like that, just really interesting rock formations, and there's a petrified forest down there.
Really scared forest.
I didn't share the picture. There's the picture. There's the picture. You just get cool geological formations.
It's the first day back, people. Be gentle.
Words are hard. Yeah, it's an amazing part of the country. Whenever I'm talking to tourists at work and that sort of stuff, I'm like, is this area on your radar? Because you need to go there. It's amazing. Because
it is actually surprisingly close. Like, it's basically if you go around the coast from Dunedin to Invercargill, you don't need to, you can stop before Invercargill because there's no reason to go there. But if you were to go on that path, that whole area around there is beautiful, beautiful beaches, and the Catlins are there, and it's wicked. It's wick, bro. Totally wick. What about me? I had whānau down here for Christmas. They turned up on the Thursday before Christmas. I still had COVID up until about the Wednesday, and they turned up on the third. I think Wednesday was my first negative.
Jesus,
so I had
you cut that close.
Yeah, I had it for like 12 days. My partner actually had it. She was testing positive for 21 days. So, but what we did was the advice we took was, even when you're testing positive, Anna Brooks will tell us that means you could still be infectious, but once you've got rid of the symptoms, the risk of that goes all the way down, right? Down, technicalities. And so we said to the family that, my partner's she's still positive, but she hasn't had symptoms for like 4 or 5 days. What do you guys want to do? And everyone was like, sweet as, and no one caught it in Dunedin. Ironically, my nieces all went off to Rhythm and Vines, and the whole group of them went back to Auckland with it after that. But they didn't get it in Dunedin, so we covered off. And then had Boxing Day off. And then after that, from the 27th through to I think the 10th, I had 12 shifts on Today FM. So this is one of and if you go to Today FM now, you can hear some of the stuff that I did. This is a talkback show episode that I did talking about this drug, diabetic drug that Americans are taking for weight loss. So diabetics can't get it. They call it the skinny pill. And so I talked with a health professional about that. And then I also talked to Michelle A. Court on her New Year's honor. And they've put some of my conversations up there. So I spent 12 out of 15 days doing talkback on Today FM. I'm sure everyone tuned in. I'm sure you all did. And I forgot how exhausting it was, Chewy. Like really, really tiring to do. It was 5-hour shift, which is a long time for talkback, but then there's probably, 2 to 5 hours of prep beforehand, and you get off here at 6 o'clock and you're just like, I'm just spent. So it's because it's just you go all the time with your brains. But yeah, that was basically and then that finished up last Tuesday. So just Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I had a bit of a break, and now we're back. So that was sort of my time off. Christmas, Today FM, 3 days off doing nothing, and now here we are.
Nice.
Here we are. So last year we wrapped up with, we gave you a whole bunch of facts and figures and what we're up to and what we've been doing. And if you haven't seen that, you can go and have a look at the last episode of last year. This year, we are still, and I don't mean to play this out again, we are still in conversation with at least one, and I'll say at least one, mainstream media outlet that may want to carry our content. Those conversations aren't going to come up on here at all until something happens. And if it happens, we'll let you know. And if it doesn't, we won't, because there'll be nothing to tell you. And other than that, we're just going to keep on kind of plodding along to see how this pans out, to see how you guys like it, to see what you think, and to see if there's a desire and a need for this. The other thing I'm going to do is I've got a new podcast starting up, and it's going to start up in January. Here, I'll give you a little bit of a preview, shall I? How do I do that again? I've forgotten where I go with this. So this is a new podcast I'm starting up in February. It looks like this. It's me having a chat with comedians and comedians only. So it's called Let's Talk Funny. It's going to be starting either the last Tuesday of January or the first Tuesday of February. It depends. I'm waiting to hear back from one international comedian, and if I get him, it'll be the last Tuesday in January.
Answer me this, Pat. How burned into your brain is that little piece of music?
It's actually not too bad. To be honest,
3 times tonight, and it's in my brain.
To be honest, I had to, when I, like those 3 days last week that I said I'd finished work, I did nothing to do with this or anything else I was working on during the Today FM. I could only focus on that. And I had to get back into the studio for a half day and go, oh crap, how does this all work again? And I had to actually re-look at all the things and re-look at what I'd done and re-look at the chirons and re-look at the lower thirds and all that just to get my brain back into it. So it wasn't too bad. But yeah, with my long form conversation, one of the things I do, like most of all, is talking to my comedian friends. And so I've decided to do a podcast talking to comedians. And that's it. I've already got 6 of New Zealand top comedians booked in. It's going to be released every Tuesday, and it's either going to start on the last Tuesday of January or the first Tuesday in February. And every Tuesday you will be able to access it on YouTube and everywhere you get podcasts in the audio version as well. So that's one of the things I'm working on. And the other podcast I do, and me and Chewy just talking about doing another podcast. That's why I joked at the start about doing 11 podcasts.
Talking about getting back to work and forgetting how things work, right? So
yeah.
My job, I have 4 passwords that I have to remember on a regular like I'll use them multiple times every day, and a quite difficult, like technical sort of job. And I'm like, oh God, I've forgotten how to do all of it. I'm terrified of forgetting these codes. As soon as I sat down, came back to me straight away, just like muscle memory. However, there was one that I forgot. I locked myself in the toilet. I forgot the toilet door code.
Oh no!
And I'm on the work chat on Messenger, just messaging the guys
going, help,
that are out the front. Help! Stuck.
Help! What's
brain no work?
Call 111. What service do you need?
I'm in the toilet.
I need passcodes in the toilet. Oh, very good. Oh, look, I can see you've marked Paul there. I'll bring Paul up. Thank you, Paul. Had a few listens. It did sound exhausting. People calling you ungodly and whining
about
you get
called ungodly.
It was great fun, man. It was just back into it. It was so much fun. Drifter Fish enjoyed listening to Today FM. Pat, will you back there anytime soon? There's no plans on me being back on Today FM. The reality is, over summertime, the backup people, the regular backup people, get shifts, and then there's always gaps to have backup to the backup. So there's no question that I was a backup to the backup. I was saying to people, because you do get lovely responses from people saying, oh, I've enjoyed you so much. And I'd say to them, look, I'm the substitute teacher. You know, the substitute teacher comes in wheeling the TV with the videotape and puts the movie in and goes, there's today's episode. And you go, God, he's the best teacher in the world. But if you had that teacher all year, you'd hate them as much as you hate all those other teachers. Or the other thing I'd say is, I'm like Hawaii. When you go to Hawaii for 5 days, it's the best holiday you've ever had in your life. If you stayed there for 12 months, you'd be like, oh my God, it's so hot. No, it's wet. No. So yeah, that's what I was. I was their substitute teacher or their 5-day trip to Hawaii. And everyone loves having a substitute teacher for a short period of time, and then they get sick of them. So no, there's no plans whatsoever. I was certainly a backup to the backup. And I guess if they needed someone and the backup wasn't available, maybe there would be, but there's no. The answer is no, there's no plans. Nothing planned yet, at least anyway, nothing in writing. I mean, they may have planned. They haven't told me about those yet. No, there's no plans. But anyway, do we want to do a show tonight, or do we just want to have a chat?
Let's do a show. We've got topics. Things have happened.
Yeah.
Let's start about some of the things that have happened.
Well, let's start with this. It is a big news story today, but it's also something that possibly people might want to get involved in on the chat pretty heavily. Like, I could do my talkback voice. So I didn't do that on talkback. That wouldn't be appropriate. So, like, have you ever been scammed or been the victim of a scam artist or something? Maybe you want to give us a call on 0800 BHN, and we can talk about that. This is a shocking story on some level. But actually, I think there's also, the headline engenders, is that the right word? Feelings of sympathy for this guy, which I think we all have. Sympathy for people getting scammed. But however, there is caveats to that. Let's just have a look at the story that came out. Bank customers beware. It is frequent message. It's a frequent message this summer, as a number of organisations urge New Zealanders to watch out for financial scams. However, one BNZ customer who lost his savings said banks should be doing more to protect people. It looked like a simple email from his bank, and Sam Clayton did not hesitate to respond. In a flash, $41,000 had been stolen from his BNZ account. I logged into my BNZ and I saw half of the, I'm struggling to read this tonight, bro. My dyslexia is going bananas. I don't know why. So I'll just take that stuff off. Here we go. Stolen from his account. I logged into my BNZ and I saw half of these accounts were empty. He said 5,000 here, 2,000 there, to a variety of different names and accounts. Money from recently selling the family home, as well as savings from his 2-year-old son's account, all gone. It seems like these scams are going on. Often we're pretty much in a position where we don't know where to go from here. While about 15,000 quickly bounced back, he was still out of pocket by $18,600. To make matters worse, he had not heard from the bank in more than a month. How easy is communication in this day and age, is what he says.
Because of course he's the only person that's been scammed.
Yeah. In a statement, RNZ, to RNZ, this is an RNZ story, BNZ Corporate Affairs Manager Cliff Joyner said, I'm going to do this again to get it out of the blue because it's playing with my eyes, said in these instances, the money was impossible to get back. He said BNZ would never ask for customers' passwords, nor send an email or text message with a link asking customers to click to log in. Sending a hypertext was a common tactic used by scammers. Cybersecurity agent CERT NZ's incident response manager Jordan Hairspring said, most cyber attacks these days are financially motivated. Duh. What, like, compared to what? Just like trying to save the whales. Cyber attack to save the whales. And we'll see a lot of scam and phishing attacks that are focused on getting people's bank accounts and taking control of their finances. But there were several ways people could keep themselves and their money safe. The use of strong passwords, yada, 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 two-factor authentication, that kind of stuff. Here. Anyway, Chewy, we were talking beforehand and you were talking about what the gentleman actually had to do to get himself scammed. Do you want to pick up on that? Oh, you were saying that like he didn't do much to stop it from happening as well. So what I said is, I feel for this guy massively. Yeah, obviously, if I'd lost 20 grand, you'd be like completely pissed.
It's an enormous amount of money.
But... Yeah, but however, like I log on to Fortnite sometimes. Oh, said it out loud, and it says on Fortnite, a game for 14-year-old boys like me. It says, you know, don't ever share your passwords. Don't ever, I don't know, they've got a coin value. I don't know what it's called, V-Bucks or something. Don't give anyone your password to V-Bucks. It's everywhere. So how can people still be falling for this?
So I see quite a bit of this in my job, people getting scammed.
Yeah. And
I mean, this guy seems to be outside of what we see. I tend to see it in particular a certain generation.
Right.
That they just don't have the critical thought when it comes to technology. That they don't dig another level. Someone's asking for my password. I'll just give it to me. When I ask for a PIN number to access the customer's account, which when we set it up, we're like, this is we here in the shop, us are the only people that are ever going to ask you this.
Right.
Okay. So you tell it to me. And then they'll quite often volunteer extra information, like, oh, my PIN number is 4769. That's the same PIN number I use on my credit card.
And the code,
and I die inside. I just go, never ever tell someone that. Mate, you know, I know it's difficult to make different PIN numbers. Maybe you try and keep it easy by keeping them all the same. But if you're doing that, don't fucking tell anyone. Yeah. Anyone. I've had people try and give me credit card numbers over the phone, and they go, "Oh, that's fine, because you work at the shop." And I'm like, "Do I? Do you know who I am?" And they go, "Oh, well, you said your name's Mike." And I go, "Is it? You don't know. Don't volunteer this stuff." I mean, when I saw the story, I reached out to a friend of mine that works in a bank. And he's relative. He's one of the major banks. He's not this one, but he was going. We're banging our heads against the wall. Education doesn't matter. People don't pay any attention. He says there's people that get scammed, and often scammed quite badly, who then get scammed again. And this is after the bank has gone, okay, right. So this is how this happened, and this is how you let it happen. Don't do this again. And then once you've been gotten by a scammer, the scammers will often try again because they know you're an easy mark. And then these people are getting hit a second or third time. And so at this point, like the comment that the guy said, "Oh, I can't understand it. Communication's easy." Do you know how many people are getting scammed every day? How many people do you think work in these departments trying to chase down these scams? Like, it doesn't work. There's more people getting scammed than there are people to case manage it. You know, the workload's so high and there's so many idiots. I'm sorry, you've already been scammed. We can't get the money. Your case is now deprioritized while we chase down someone that we might be able to get the money back.
Yeah.
You know, so as someone that works in this sort of stuff, don't volunteer extra information. If someone calls you, don't do what they say. Don't click on links. Like if an email comes through and it says click on this link, don't. Just go to the website. Call up their customer care team and go, "Hey, I just got this email. Is this legit?" And they'll probably go straight away, "No."
I also would warn people how much information they give out publicly, whatever. I've done this a couple of times, actually, whilst doing talkback, and I did it once over the summer period. When someone phones me up as a talkback host, remember they're not just talking to me, but there's at least 4 other people listening. And they talk about their life. I've done it 2 or 3 times just for my own interest. As they've been talking about their life, I've been like, they've mentioned their son's name, who's a musician, who was recently in Los Angeles, and just like 3 or 4 comments like that. Sometimes you can find people online, and when you find people online, you have all this information, kind of like what Ben, you've highlighted, put Ben's up. I kind of like what Ben is saying is that you actually open yourself up to that pretty easily. And as you were talking, I've brought it up. I remember how easy it was. Jeremy Clarkson once did this thing when he was working for Top Gear. He was like, "Oh, bank accounts are secure," and he published his bank account number in the Guardian. And guess what happened? What happened was Diabetes UK went and took £500 out of his bank account. Like,
Good
obviously
stuff.
they shouldn't have done it, but they were proving a point, and obviously he was too embarrassed to then get it. It was a donation to they made a charitable donation to their own charity in his name and took it out of his bank account. So I've always been pretty private, and I think you need to be aware that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, like for example, the mother's maiden, I've mentioned my mother's maiden name dozens of times on radio and probably on here as well, because it's of my Irish ancestry, and so that's not something I then use as a security thing ever, because it would not be hard for people to find that. And so all I'm saying is just be aware what you put out there that you think is not a big deal. You don't need a lot sometimes to be tracked. And if you can be tracked, then more information can be found out about it. And if more information can be found out about you, then someone can kind of spoof you and pretend to be you. And then that can come back on you as well. It's just,
Obviously the phone number stuff is the stuff that I know really well.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that there are computers that will just fake a phone number and it'll look like a New Zealand phone number or whatever.
Yeah.
Never answer a private call. Like if it's a legitimate organization that's calling you, they'll leave a message and you call them back.
Yeah.
If there's no message, ignore it. If it's a number that you don't recognize, don't answer it. If it's a legitimate call, they'll leave a message. If they don't, it's a scam. That's how common that is. And never give control of your computer to someone. Never click a link in an email. Just contact customer service.
John T says this, which is interesting. When I do work on a site with some of our clients, the amount of times I see a wee password notebook come out of someone's top drawer is shocking. I think that's probably right when it comes to businesses, but I've heard a lot of computer experts say they're not breaking into your house to get your passwords off your wall, but they will break into your computer. So if you are going to see them somewhere, maybe having them stored on a hard copy is better than a soft copy. Caitlin also says, having fallen foul of Kiwi Farms, I'm very careful about personal information now. Yeah, completely utterly. It's like, I think it's good practice. Like, here's a little example. I've never said my children's name on radio or on the internet. Never once said any of my children's name. It's just because it's something that I keep private. You notice I said my partner before. I didn't say a name. I said my partner. That's the stuff I don't put out there. And we're nobodies. Like, we're absolutely nobodies. But it's still just stuff that you're wiser to keep some of that stuff to yourself, because you're less likely to get scammed or have it come back and bite you in the ass.
I see, again, customers of a certain generation, they pull out their phone, their wallet case, and in the wallet case, there'll be a little dog-eared piece of paper that has their bank pins, their Google passwords, all of that sort of stuff written down on it, and it's with their phone.
Not smart. Not smart having them together.
Dumbest stuff. So, I mean, like, if we want to talk about practical steps to stop this happening, everyone in the chat, have a conversation about this with your parents.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones that are fucking it all up.
Yeah. And also, Gareth suggests Dashlane Password Manager. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. Not sure if it stores toilet door codes though. So,
I even had a scammer call us at work the other day.
What, claiming to be from 2 degrees? Hi, I'm from 2 degrees.
No.
I have to check on you.
From another,
Vodafone.
I'm calling about your Spark internet connection.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, are you now? Yeah. Okay. Well, so what's going on with that? And he goes, "Oh, there are people trying to hijack your internet connection." And I was like, "Oh, that's really concerning. I should do something about that now, right? What do I do?" And he goes, "Oh, sir, I just need your password." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I've got it here." It is "Eat shit and die, you scammer scumbag." All caps, one word.
Yeah.
And then beep, beep, beep.
The thing about scams as well, not so, maybe it is these ones, I'm not sure, is that what they typically do is they send out 2 million emails and they hear back from they hear back from 2,000, of which they scam 2. You know, that's sort of the idea. And if you want to know more about it, there's lots of really interesting internet YouTube clips about people getting into the scammers' computers and then wiping their files. But Mark Rober, who is a former NASA engineer, has just started doing some work on scammers as well. And if you want to kind of see how kind of evil they are, look up Mark Rober and scammers on YouTube, and you'll get an eye opener. If you don't know about it, it'll be eye opening, trust me. And what they do and how they take advantage of the elderly is one thing. Look, and I guess I was being a bit harsh on the guy before because everyone can get done, but I'm just like, how long do we have to tell people, like, the education factor? Like, tell again, don't share your path. I mean, like, if you're elderly and you're becoming a little bit less corpus mentis and you get taken advantage of, that's one thing. But if you're with it and you know this and you've been told this, why is anybody doing that? Please stop doing it.
You know what I would like to see out of the media reporting their stories, though?
A nudie woman?
It's always like it's a lot of money. They took money out of his bank account. It's after the sale of a house. All of that sort of stuff. That's fine. Tell me how he was scammed. Tell people what the scam actually involved. Where did this guy make his mistake? It's one line in there. He replied back to an email with his password. People need to know how to not do what these people that have been scammed do. Don't give away your password.
I'll show you one other thing. People can go look up this Emma Ferris's name. Do you know the name Emma Ferris? Emma Ferris is a Glenorchy businesswoman. She turned the tables on a con man. I think it was there. She got conned out of $250,000. I've done a podcast with her, so I've got her story in full. If you want to go look up her name and then put my name as well, Emma Ferris, you'll get her story. And she's turned it into a podcast herself now. So it's she got a podcast about being conning the con man or something, I think it might be called. And she got it all back. She basically conned the con man and got it all back. So it's a pretty cool story. If people want to look it up, Emma Ferris. And if you put Emma Ferris, Pat Britton, then you might find our podcast that I did with her explaining it all. But either way, it's a pretty cool story. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah.
Let's talk about dis and misinformation. I know this has been a subject that was it's so 2022. And look, as always, if it's a topic of conversation, we will continue to cover it. There was a story that Paula Penfold has written the 15th of Jan. Is that today? Yesterday. And what Paula is pitching, or the idea that she's putting out there is abusive journalists shows how ugly our civil discourse has become. Now, lots of people out there amongst the disinformation crew, they're pointing to the journalists saying they're the reason for the civil discourse. But what Paula is saying is the venom being thrown at the journalists is evidence of how civil discourse has become so terrible. I want to read you a bit of this. And Paula's a friend of the show, and we've had her on once or twice, certainly once for the Fire and Fury special.
Yep.
This is what she wrote. A year ago, I wrote about my sister's cancer, given the brutal treatment regime she was undergoing had left her immunocompromised. I wanted to express my frustration so that many people were refusing to adopt government measures which would protect not only themselves, but others like her. Then she tells a story about her sister, what's going on there. And then after she wrote that story, right? So this is not Fire and Fury yet. After she wrote that story, she writes this. But I was not prepared for the resulting tidal wave that flooded my inbox, neither the volume nor the venom. Here's an example. A Christchurch musician, using his real name, wrote with an attention-grabbing subject line, F your sister. I hesitated to open the email, obviously, but did. And F you, you're a grandstanding, see you next Thursday. H.J. Brown emailed subject line non-human. What a disgraceful human you are. Your time is up. Watch your health decline. Miroslav, subject line resign scumbag, wanted me to, quote, issue a public apology while you're at it, you sick, deranged individual. And it went on. She then started to talk about when she put out Fire and Fury, what happened after that. So this is all of that was pre-Fire and Fury. After Fire and Fury, here's some examples. From Joseph, you are a complete piece of shit. You are lucky we don't meet. Following up a few days later with, F you, slut. The sooner you die, the better. Peter agreed. Quote, even more citizens are aware how much of a see you next Thursday you actually are. Eventually your kids will despise you. What a lying piece of shit you are. Letitia wanted me to, quote, look up the Nuremberg Code and think hard about what will be coming your way. You're disgusting. Rochelle shared those thoughts. Quote, the sooner all lying media are gone, the better. Given you all have nothing useful to offer to society. Get a real job, you viper. Nuremberg 2 has started. Try being honest for once, because you have been added to the list of liars and will reap what you sow. And Sean wrote in capitals, wake up, Paula. We are growing, and you will all burn. That's a small sample. You get the idea. Abuse and attacks on journalists are not new, and I'm far from the only one who is on the receiving end. My staff colleagues have had gear smashed. They've been punched. Many reporters have been harassed, both in person and online. One was threatened with their home being burned down. It's worse for women. Research published in 2022 showed women make up 58% of the profession, but are seriously concerned about their safety at work due to public discrediting threats, surveillance, physical attacks, sexual harassment, and stalking. She wraps by saying, well, she doesn't wrap, there's more of it. I'm just giving you some snippets. You can check it out on stuff.co.nz if you want to. What's the impact of the abuse? Does it stop us publishing journalism? We know we'll attract these emails and messages on our social media. No, it doesn't. We keep telling these stories. But there is a chilling effect. Good people leave the profession, some at the urging of their families. And those of us who remain are forced to spend too much time having to think about our security and putting measures in place to keep ourselves safe. Time we should be able to spend on journalism. Journalists are constantly ranked alongside car salespeople and lobbyists in polls of the least trusted profession. Some no doubt think we get what we deserve, or none of this matters. But I'm telling you because I think the amount of intensity of abuse is an important insight into how ugly our civil discourse has become. Wanting people to die just for doing their jobs is a pretty depressing level of engagement. Chewy.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have seen a little bit of that just through the people that we've spoken to. No, I mean the people that we've spoken to have told us about it. Yeah. And I think that there's a reasonable swathe of the population that doesn't realize how vicious this has got for a lot of journalists. You know, a lot of them have their names out there, obviously on bylines on the stories that they write. It's very easy to get an email through to exactly who wrote the article that's made you all frothy, and you can just hammer out your spittle laden emails and make all sorts of threats and vile comments, and there doesn't really seem to be any comeback or consequences for doing so. Like, you have to make a very clear, obvious death threat for police to do anything about it. I'm going to shoot you might provoke a visit from the police, but if
I think also feed like genuine, like a genuine threat as well. Like if you said to someone living in Perth, I'm going to shoot you, that would be very different from you saying it face to face someone down the road. So I think there's a level of actual how credible is, that's what I'm looking for. How credible is this threat as well? So it's not just so that's a part of it, which is shocking.
But we keep talking about this as well in the circles that these people are at, right? That hyper hyped up language that they all use on Telegram and that sort of thing. And they're all like, I'm going to write a letter to Paula Penfold and I'm going to put this and I'm going to put it up to all of my mates. And it becomes this like, who's going to go further? Who's going to say something even worse? Who's going to do something?
Yeah.
You know, they're all sitting around going, people deserve to die. Somebody is going to go, well, there's a big enough movement here that I'm going to do it. And it's certainly happened overseas that people have had, you know, taken out journalists and that sort of thing. And that's very scary. Like, I mean, we've got an election this year, and with that level of discourse and commentary floating around, I think it's going to be a pretty ugly one.
I also note how hypocritical a lot of it is. I mean, vile, disgusting, repugnant, we can say all that, but how hypocritical. There's one particular right-wing communicator, pundit, whatever word you want to say, who said in response to a tweet about that story, well, what do you expect when you marginalize a minority?
Oh,
and I'm like, have you met the Maori people? You know, like many of these people that are yelling about this now are the same people who were yelling about the Urewera raids and that Maori were wrong there. Do you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't mean I'm going to respect you and respect your opinion, but if you're consistent in your vitriol, at least I'll say you're consistent. And it's a little bit like these people who, more so in America, but the kind of Christian right, who have been talking about autonomy of their body, you know, autonomy of their body when it comes to getting vaccines. Like, we should have autonomy, my body, my choice, are the same people who don't offer that to women around abortions. You know, I get pretty fucked off with all of that. I get pretty annoyed by the whole thing because I know it might be a low bar, Chewy, but one of the things I value the most in discourse is consistency. And if you're inconsistent, I'm just like I was listening to some ridiculous talkback hosts today who are right-wing nutters talking about how dare the supermarkets stop doing caged eggs, you know, blimmin' woke. And I'm like, these are the same wankers who have been rallying for a year about keeping government out of business and letting businesses make decisions they want. And now they're saying, how dare these businesses make a decision they want? It's like, you know, just let's start with consistency. And let's go from there into discourse. Yeah, can we at least agree to that?
No, it's you can't expect consistency. I mean, I saw I saw a tweet from someone the other day that just made me laugh. Why are there only extremists on the right wing? Why don't we have any left wing extremism? Or is it just that the bias of the media won't see or report it? As soon as you mentioned the Urewera raids, that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, how short is your memory, bro?
What about Antifa?
Like, yeah. The demonization of Antifa. Certainly there have been left-wing groups that I've been part of that have been subject to police infiltration.
But not just the demonization of Antifa. When Antifa tore Portland apart, the complete and appropriate criticism of Antifa. You know, what are you talking about? I mean, and this is the people getting echoed by. And look, it's been 42 minutes and 55 seconds and I haven't said it yet, and I'll say it for the first time. You know the rules. This has to be said once every show. We walk and chew gum at the same time, right? We can look at a subject from a position that we support and go, this time you're wrong, right? That's how you get consistency. That's what we do here, and we will continue to do that here. That's why when I did Talkback, I would say, I said it on air, Chewy. I was talking about being a lefty. Talkback hosts don't do that. I'm like, I sit on the left. Yep. I sit on the left, and then they were like, "Yeah, stupid lefty." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Now, tell me where I'm wrong. Let's get past that. Now, tell me where I'm wrong and where you disagree with me. And it's disarming. It's not particularly good when it comes to.
You can't dig further than somebody's labels, mate.
Yeah, but anyway, look. I mean, the idea that. Yeah, I do really value consistency. Like I know that if I talk with someone and they have a well set out cogent argument for where they get their position, even if I disagree with their position, then I'll be like, I see how you get there. I don't get there, but I see how you get there.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like there are a lot of things, say the more of the right wing spectrum, the right of center, say, I don't agree with it. I can understand how you got there. I can understand the principles that underlie what makes you believe the things that you believe. Therefore, I would expect that you could probably see where I'm coming from as well. You might disagree, but you can have a discussion. And then when you go further to the wings, it doesn't matter. I'm a communist. I saw a roundtable a discussion, a debate online that was set up between someone arguing both, or they wanted to discuss both sides of the Ukraine situation.
Oh yeah.
Yep, you had someone more on Russia's side, you had someone more on Ukraine's side. The guy on the Russian side just went, "You are a NATO supporter. You want to expand the war. You are wishing for the death of Ukrainian people." And at that point, it was like, okay, this isn't the discussion. You're just yelling at the person.
This is over.
Masterfully, the guy that was on the pro-Ukraine side saw that the argument was out the window. There's no point in discussing facts anymore. So every time he was asked a position, he would just turn the question around on the person and go, "If you were a tree, what tree would you be?"
I think we need to put that link up somewhere. That sounds like something we actually.
Oh no! Look, I sat through it. It gave me borderline brain damage. I'm waiting for someone to clip it down. It is insane.
So you say borderline brain damage. I just think James Hake all over again, but I did that as well. Some messages that have been coming in. We're already hassling that poor guy. We're in a new year and we're still giving him shit. Paul, what does Paul say? Paul says, this makes me want to apologize. Oh, I forgot. We're talking about Paula. Yeah. To Paula on behalf of humanity. Kim says, I remember that she wasn't in her house as she didn't feel safe when you were interviewing her. Yeah. She was basically, I mean, I don't want to be too dramatic, but she was basically in hiding. Caitlin says this feels so familiar. Yeah, people talking about it all the way through. Look up, here we go. There's an example. Look up a guy called Scammer Payback. A funny dude. Oh, yeah, the old lady voice. Yeah, that's one of the guys I watch as well. I have seen around.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Isn't it amazing that voice that comes out of his mouth? I don't know how he does it.
It doesn't. But look, it's mind bending. It's so.
I think I agree with Paula, and what this is doing is kind of laying more at the feet of the people going nuts. Because even if let's say. Forget Paula. Let's say journalist X. Let's not give her any more hassles. Journalist X. I'm just going to store my pencil here. Let's just say journalist X was wrong, but that was their opinion. How on earth does that evolve into death threats?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people who write opinion pieces and stuff are wrong every single day? Like
I do. They're all in the New Zealand Herald.
But you know what I mean? It's like, and that to me says, I sort of side with that position that Paula was professing that says it's the response that we're getting that shows the level of discourse that's falling away, not the people who are making the opinion to receive the response. Whereas the people who are responding are saying it's you making the opinion that demonstrates the level. Because if I say something that's wrong, if your response is you should fucking die, then that's on you. You know what I mean? Disproportionate.
I mean, I see accounts and comments and characters and that I intensely disagree with. I might even outright call them liars, but I have never once wished violence or misfortune on a single one of them. It baffles me that people have got to that stage.
I saw something really good the other day. I don't know who this person is or anything, but it was a really nice little thing on Facebook. This is in a local Dunedin News Uncut.
Oh, I've seen that meme doing the rounds.
So there's a meme going around that says this. This is the meme, yeah? A different opinion than yours is not misinformation. A different opinion than yours is not disinformation. A different opinion than yours is not hate speech. A different opinion as yours is not racism. A different opinion than yours is just a different opinion from yours. Now, obviously, this is the most R-worded meme in the history of the world, because if your different opinion from mine is black people are inferior, then yeah, your different opinion is racism, right? We know that, but someone's written a piece about this which kind of is better than anything I could say, so I'll just see. This guy called Jordan Fry. I don't know Jordan at all. It might just be a local Dunedin guy. Says this: it is misinformation if it's demonstrably wrong. It is disinformation if it's demonstrably a lie. It is hate if it's promoting hate. It is racism if it attacks or profiles others based on their race. I like KFC is an opinion.
Hate crime. Oh, no.
That might be true. Might be true. Anyway, the moon is made of cheese is misinformation. The Holocaust did not happen is disinformation. Gay people should be executed is hate speech. Segregation had its merits is racism. You are not entitled to your opinion. You are entitled to an informed opinion. No one is entitled to ignorance. And I'm just like, oh, mwah. Whoever you are, Jordan Fryer, you're my hero. I mean, if you've stolen it, then you've stolen it well. But I think that's just a great write-up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, bang on. It's real easy to put something like that in a meme and go, oh, that's perfect. No notes. But the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's all of this is wrong. It's wrong. It's so obvious.
It's because it's missing a word. A different opinion from yours may not be misinformation. 100%. That statement's true. A different opinion from yours is not misinformation, is a false statement, because it could be complete misinformation, or any of the other list that's in there as well. I think we should now, seeing we're talking about mis and disinformation, let's have a look at these. This is a fun show actually tonight, because we're doing a few things that we haven't also talked about doing. I wanted to get you, and this is from friend of the show, Calvin Morgan, who does some very, very good work, especially on Twitter.
Paula Penfold, friend of the show. Oh, no, sorry. I thought you said that Calvin Alp was a friend of the show.
No, Calvin Morgan.
I was good. I got confused.
Barack Obama, friend of the show. You know, Jacinda Ardern, friend of the show. Martima Davison. Hey, I thought, Chewy, you can explain, first of all, what the charges that these guys are facing are, because Calvin wonders if that Calvin Alp and Hannah Spire, whatever, who are both facing 14 years in jail, making their lawyer's job much harder by running their mouths about their court case while guest hosting on the Alex Jones InfoWars show last Friday. So in other words, did they just admit to the charges on Alex Jones's show? So first of all, Chewy, you've got the details of what their charges are.
Alp and Spera were charged with 2 counts of distributing an objectionable publication and 1 charge of failing to carry out obligations in regards to a computer search. So that's in relation to posting links to a video.
So what does it exactly say again about the links thing? Just repeat that for me.
2 counts of distributing an objectionable publication.
Okay. So what we got to do is figure out if what they've said, we don't have to do this, but we're going to do this because that's what we do. So distributing objectionable material. Now this does have some facets of interest. So I was talking to Chewy beforehand, and Chewy can't participate in this because we're talking sports ball. But there's a basketball player called Kyrie Irving. He's the guy, he plays for the Brooklyn Nets. He's the guy that thought the earth was flat and he wouldn't get his vaccine. And so he didn't play half of last season, yada, 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 yada. He shared a link to a revolting video, I understand, or like a movie that was saying there's no Holocaust. I think that's what it was. Now, he got in a ton of shit for that with his business, being the Brooklyn Nets and the NBA. What wasn't talked so much about was the link was to a video that you could purchase on fucking Amazon. So Amazon, Jeff Bezos' company, was also selling this horrific movie and making money off it. Now, Kyrie Irving shared a link and got in a lot of trouble. Amazon, who was selling this objectionable material, they sort of skidded under the radar. So depending what they mean by, you know, kind of sharing, what's the exact word again? So I don't get it wrong.
Distributing.
Depending what they mean by distributing, like is sharing a link distributing? I don't know. But Calvin Morgan, friend of the show, has asked the question, have these guys just incriminated themselves? So let's have a listen to what they had to say.
What happened to Calvin after that Fire and Fury documentary aired 10 days later?
10 days later, we were arrested on August 25th last year. We've had 3 court appearances so far. The arrest was for sharing a link to a foreign website, a UK investigative documentary that was going on into the incident that we had here in Christchurch.
So he's just listed it. Yeah, this does look like a hostage video as well, doesn't it? That he's just talking about what the arrest was for. Do they then say they did share that link?
March 15th, 2019. Apparently, they don't like questions being asked. They don't like real investigative journalism. They're saying, hey, your official narrative stinks. We can got more holes than Swiss cheese. And in true fashion, we're holding the line. We're not taking our foot off the gas, and we are going to back on that.
Yes, Calvin, and that link was actually posted way back in February, and it took them over 6 months to actually get their case sorted. They didn't give us a takedown order. They didn't ask us to remove the link or review anything that we had done. We didn't actually post any.
Here's the kicker. It was made objectionable after it was posted.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And that is very
That's not true,
interesting.
actually.
We haven't shared any
No.
footage of the live stream that the shooter put out. Brendan
So
Town,
she's
because, of
confirming
course,
they shared the
that
link.
was deemed objectionable, and also the manifesto. So we haven't done anything like that, and yet still we are facing 14 years in jail.
So the argument's going to come from these guys is that it's not objectionable, but whether they had or haven't, they've certainly now confirmed they shared the link. Now, so you're clear, and if anyone who's a supporter of Counterspin sees this, and you won't, we're not going to show up in your algorithm. We spoke to the former chief censor about this. It doesn't matter that it was deemed objectionable after, legally speaking. I don't care what your opinion is. Legally speaking, it doesn't matter if it wasn't deemed objectionable when you shared it. It's like saying, but I killed him last week and no one knew. What do you mean it's a crime today? Like, if that's probably not a good example because we know that murder is bad, but if you commit an act on a child when they're a child that then gets deemed an illegal act 10 years later, it's still an illegal act when you did it. So the chief censor at the time, the former chief censor, explained to us very, very carefully. His name's David. Wasn't it David Shanks? It feels right. Yep. You can go look it up.
David Shanks. You
can go and have a look. Explain very clearly. It doesn't matter that they shared it before it was objectionable. In fact, if you think about it logically, everything pretty much gets shared before it gets made objectionable because that's how the censors and stuff find them. So that's not relevant at all. So it's not relevant. So I guess what they're going to be arguing, they're going to try and argue when we shared it, because they've now said they shared it, it wasn't objectionable. That's out the window. I guess their only argument left is now going to be it's not objectionable to share a link to the actual issue.
I think they've laid out the three bits that they're trying to defend themselves on. Is that sharing a link isn't distributing, it's overseas, and it isn't just the live stream. It's a documentary that includes footage of the live stream, and that's not going to cut it. There's no way. There's no way. They're on a one-way road to a hiding.
Yeah. Alrighty. Hey, look at this. We're coming up to 10 o'clock. We don't want to run too late tonight. So let's get into the last story that we're going to talk about. And the last story we're going to talk about is, can Luxon lose? And if you're watching in the chat, well, Chewy, let me put it to you this way. If you were to place a bet right now on who you thought would win, who would it be? If you were going to place a bet.
It depends. Are we placing bets based on merit, or are we placing bets on the general public?
You want your money back, right? You want to make money, right? And like when the All Blacks play Fiji, if the Fijian supporters want to guarantee, the best chance to winning money, they'd back the All Blacks. So let's stop all this horseshit and your little ginger sensitivities there. If you're putting money on, I don't need to ask you. We both know if you're putting money on it today, chances are that the good money would go on national today, just today, right? I think it was Matthew Hooton wrote a piece, because I actually did it on Talkback. Matthew Hooton wrote a piece over the holidays talking about, can Luxon lose? Or maybe it was like a repeat, like they do the best ofs, and it was earlier in the year. Is it Luxon's to lose? And he actually said out quite an interesting thing about what needs to happen. And a lot of it was to do with, what are his policies going to be? We don't know who he is yet, yada, 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 yada. Duncan Garner on Today FM, good station that, Today FM, people should check it out. Did a similar sort of thing. Now, I'm not going to go through all the stuff I have because I've got hundreds of words, but I'll give you a couple of highlights. Talking about Bill English, who went from 21% of the vote, and then in 2017 they had 46% of the vote, and they thought they were going to win, and they didn't, because Labour got in 2017. National needs friends, Māori Party, but what's National going to do if they keep attacking Māori issues? That's something else Duncan talks about. Luxon will need to run a disciplined team. He'll need to be more decisive and clear about what National will prioritise and get done. I detect voters are unconvinced by Luxon and may even be suspicious. I'm mainly talking about swinging voters here. And I'm still confused about what National's key policies are, what it stands for, and what it will prioritise. Firstly, I presume that they will spend less than Labour going by their attacks. So how much less, and what's going to get cut? What does that save? Luxon will need to answer this, as Finance Minister Grant Robertson will be in charge of strategy, and he will target Luxon to show him up. Robertson will try to extract a John Key moment when, like the former PN said, show me the money in the 2014 election debate to Phil Goff, it finished him. It was crucial. Massive text for Luxon. Never before has a first-term MP ever become national leader, and in that term take national to an election, etc., etc., etc. Ardern will try. Okay, here's the wrap-up for you. Ardern will try and keep it simple after 5 years where she has tried far too many things, did too many interventions, and restructured, and very few have been successful. But you wouldn't know that given the smugness of over-satisfaction and an unwavering and unjustified self-belief that captured this lot some time back. Ardern and Robertson know if they tank now, this is an interesting thought actually, if they tank now, their careers are over and they are still young. That's why the advantage of being in office is a big one. I also think as well, and I'm not saying that Ardern would be thinking this, but if they tank now and lose, she's got a 40-year career of her of doing anything she wants for any, any NGO anywhere in the world, right? And I'm not saying that she'll be going, I don't care if I win or lose, but that's a reality as well. They have the checkbook, but can they make stuff happen, or are they operating in a death spiral? Luxon can only waffle and talk about outcomes and runs on the board. In fact, the more he speaks about outcomes, road tests, and runs on the board and, quote, giving it a try and we'll see what happens, end quote, the more I worry about his chances. So there's the there's the bit of the setup. So Chewy, what do you think? What do you think?
Right. I'm gonna let's both sides of this, both teams, right? So traditionally the New Zealand voting base love to change teams. Like somebody's been in power for a little while, they're like, let's give the other guy a go because there's been enough build up of stuff that people don't like that they want to try the other team. That's where the swing voters are, right? And they'll just go, I'm mildly annoyed with these guys. I don't care about the past. Let's try someone else. So they've got that going for them, that Labour's had a long run through a particularly difficult time. There's been so many challenges, and say the COVID response has been really divisive, for better or worse. But yeah, Luxon's an amateur. His top performers in his party are barking at cars constantly. It's just noise, and then they've got nothing to back it up. And they're in that patch where at some point you're going to have to give us some policy. And at some point, the excuse of, I don't want to give the opposition some ideas, just runs out. You've got to tell us what you stand for. There's no consistency. They have had their own dramas. They've had attempts to take down Labour ministers that have fallen flat. I just don't think that on their own merits that they have enough in the tank. I just hope that Labour doesn't necessarily just point behind them and go, look at everything that we've done.
Well, there's not much they can point to if they do that.
Well, they can turn around and go, we got you through COVID. We had a world-beating COVID response. Yeah,
but that's for the first. That's what it is it's like a game of golf. Sorry to be the sporting analogy again, where you have a fantastic first 9 holes and then you screw it up the second 9 holes. All you think about is the last 9 holes that you screwed it up.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go, hey, look, we've got a world-beating COVID response. We can talk about the crisis management all day long. That's like, we are a good party in a crisis. Is there another crisis coming? We don't know. But we've kept you in jobs. We've kept business open. This is where we're going from here. And we talked about this with Nationals from a point of them criticizing the government, as it's always government bad, us better, no details.
But I mean, that's what we expect from an oppositional party. The question is, how long are we, the public, prepared to wait until we finally go, okay, now's time? Like, are we okay to not get that stuff in the first quarter and to get it for 6 months between the second and third quarters to the election? Or do we want to see policy now? When I say we, I mean, how would that reflect in the polls? Like, is it time for them to start getting policy out, or is it going to be April, May before we start seeing policy from National?
And I mean, that's the thing. There may be a benefit for National to just try and shut the hell up as much as possible to avoid the foot going in the mouth. Yeah, when you've got an amateur like Luxon, that's something your comms team have got to be really, really careful on.
Gareth says something interesting here, right? A big problem for National is inflation under control heading down. We don't know about that yet, but stuff is reporting. I just removed it. You know, exactly that. Signs of inflation coming off. When might interest rates drop? Now, I had conversations over summer about this. I was like, what's going to be the big issue you're going to vote on? Because the polls are saying it's about the economy. If it is the economy, why are you going to give it to National when the last quarter of last year, the economy we're in was described by economists as quote unquote stupendously strong because of the 2% GDP growth. So if it's about the economy, and look, I'm not even saying this to say, so therefore Labour will be better. I'm just saying, if it's about the economy, we're being told by the economists who said, I think it was ASB, that the current economy is stupendously strong.
Yeah.
And signs of inflation coming off, as the article is saying, I wonder if Gareth's got a point that the better the economy looks, the harder it will be for National to sell that.
Yeah.
I guess that's obvious. Yeah.
Like National, the party of the economy, cannot go up against Grant Robertson in a numbers game. Grant is a bulldog. He knows the stuff backwards and forwards. He'll rip them a new one. And if we're coming into, avoiding an economic crisis, remember people last year were talking about the only way that we could get inflation underway is if 700,000 people lose their jobs. And that you had banks going, that's what we need to do. And I can't believe that was people's answer to, like, we've got to ruin some lives here, people.
Well, also
cheese down.
This idea that the Reserve Bank is now engineering a recession to bring inflation down. If inflation starts to come down, the Reserve Bank doesn't need to do that. Could you imagine, with all the doom and gloom, and I'm not saying it was unrealistic doom and gloom last year about the recessions that's coming, if the economy got through to the next election with no recession? I mean, could you imagine what that would mean? How could anyone then argue the economy argument if that was the situation? I mean, even if it dropped into recession for one quarter, and they were talking about a shallow recession of 0.8%, it's just had a 2% growth. So you'd still be a net positive. I mean, I'm just saying, the problem is, and forgive me, lovely viewers, for saying it so arrogantly, but often people are idiots, and they'll hear the politician and their line, and then that'll be gospel. But as soon as you start digging and looking, and hopefully it's one of the things we'll be able to do for you, you'll be showing what the data is. You know how much I love my graphs and my data, Chewy. We'll show you the data and we'll say, is it accurate? Is it not? At the moment, I reflect the comments, not my comments, because I'm not an economist, but the economist saying the last quarter of last year was quote unquote stupendously strong. I mean, how do you then say, government doesn't know what it's doing with the economy? They've had zero results when the money people are saying it's good. Now, they're not saying it's good, meaning it's good and we're all in prosperity. What I read is they're saying, if you look where we could be with an economy that really has been impacted mostly by the world and COVID, this economy is stupendously strong. That's how I read it. And what else could you expect?
Well, here's what I expect is people could read or ignore those articles and they just see prices going up in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And they go, this is hurting me, and that's the government's fault. And here's a group of people saying it's the government's fault and they can fix it. And I don't actually care about the details. I'm just going to tick blue.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about is how and I guess we're a bit guilty of this as well. The media in general, we still talk in really binary terms like it's first past the post. It's Labour and National. And we know that it isn't. Does National have enough friends to make up for the votes that they won't pick up? That the votes that the Green Party and Te Pāti Māori bring in, like, that's a really clear, like, Labour will go, we don't have enough to win it on our own, so we're going to talk to the Greens, and the Greens will come up with an agreement, and then they'll look at it and go, well, we don't have enough to win it with the Greens and only the Greens, we're going to have to reach out to Te Pāti Māori. And
then that, because that then raises what that raises is the slender man whose name you can't say 3 times as well. Mr. Peters.
Yep.
Lots of people upset about infrastructure costs, overruns, and substandard work. Bring back
the Ministry
of
Works. Yes,
with independent oversight. Look, I think that it's certainly Nationals to lose right now, but I've said this for 6 months. 18 months out of a certain election where Don Brash had them way up in the polls. After the Ottawa speech, it just went tick down, tick down, tick down, tick down, tick down. And it's very interesting seeing some of these, I'll say alleged, but certainly right-leaning commentators kind of going, now they're either going warning signs because they're wanting to make sure that their viewers and listeners and base don't take it for granted so they get to the polls, or if they're being authentic and genuine, they're saying this is not over yet. And I think in Duncan Garner's piece, it talked about, if National got 46% of the vote and ACT brought in 7 MPs and gets them to 59, they're not government. So what you're saying about having friends, and I guess to Party Māori, I don't know how they could possibly get into bed with old Baldy McBald a lot.
No,
but
they won't. And I mean, people go, "Oh, there's always a chance," because there was it wasn't the Party Māori, was it? It was a different Māori party. They went into a coalition with National, and they paid the price for it. People crucified them.
It was the Party Māori, but they were called the Māori Party at the time.
Which
they're still called. I mean, their website is still MāoriParty.com. So I think it's just the Party Māori.
I wasn't sure if it was the same entity or not.
Yeah,
but yeah,
no,
I think at this stage there is zero chance that they would go coalition partner with National at any cost.
We'll see. I mean, like I tend to agree with you in theory, but I also know, if you want to make a change, affect a change, or get some things through, it's better to be on the inside of the tent looking out than the outside of the tent throwing stones in. So,
and that's the thing. The Māori Party did get some wins on the board by going into that coalition partnership with National last time, but it also cost them.
Yeah, it did actually. I wonder if this year, and we're a long ways away, and we'll talk about this a lot, I'm sure. But I wonder if National doesn't get there with just them and ACT, like obviously them and ACT get 61, done deal. But if they don't get there with them and ACT, it could very easily be another Labour government. I mean, there are some. I think they probably, at the moment, looking at the polls, they could well get there with just them and ACT. Long way to go. I'm not going to say that's what's going to happen. I'm saying looking at it today, but a lot will rely on Winston Peters. I think Winston Peters has a vindictive streak in him about Labour. I don't think he'd go with Labour, even no matter how much he postures. But I think that if Winston gets in, it's a done deal for National. And if Winston doesn't get in and they don't get there, lots of caveats here, but they don't get there with just the two parties, it could well be Labour. I still think saying all of that, odds are on National. I mean, if I was putting money today that I wanted to get back, I'd say National.
I mean, I just can't get past a couple of key things. Do you think Christopher Luxon would be a better Prime Minister than Jacinda Ardern? Do you think that there's a better Finance Minister than Grant Robertson at the moment? Do you think National's front bench have any talent at all? I mean, maybe I'm partisan as fuck, and I am, but I can't objectively get there.
I think those first two questions are really interesting. Better Prime Minister, better Finance Minister. I think the front bench one is a bit, I think there's obviously plenty of talent among some of those senior National people. It may not be talent that you want to support or get behind, but I think those first two are really interesting. I remember at the last election, and I've said this before, doing a podcast with Michelle Acourt, and she said very clearly, why would you replace an exceptional woman with a run-of-the-mill average man? That was last time. Not saying it's exactly the same this time, but interesting to think who would be a better Prime Minister and why. Because at the moment, to be fair, we don't know, because Luxon has said nothing other than they suck. But it's an interesting one about finance. Who would be the finance for National, and would he be better than Grant? Would he or she?
I mean, I was being facetious about National's front bench, but I mean, I think that points to a problem as well, is that you just get noise from them. I make the joke about them barking at cars, but that's all you see.
Yeah, that's also a bit of an oppositional thing, though. Yeah, I mean, I'm not actually disagreeing with Chewy, but I can also step back and go, that's what oppositional parties do, and that's why, I guess, to wrap up this part of the conversation, we need to see policy.
Yeah, policy, like a bitchy tweet and policy. Very happy man here. But at the moment, we're just getting bitchy tweets.
All right, people have joined us late because they didn't know what was going on. Glad to see you guys back, says Adam. Thank you, Adam. JN says, Happy New Year, guys. Thanks so much. Freestyle says, Happy New Year, guys. Didn't realize you were back. Yep, first night back. You know, we had to wait because Karen Plunkett got back today. And without Karen Plunkett, we've got no content. So we had to wait for Karen to get back so we could have some content again. That's the only reason, though. The only reason we waited till now. No, it's great, guys. Hey, listen, we're done for tonight. If you're just joining us and you're wondering why we're only doing a 15-minute show, because we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Because basically from here on in, for the foreseeable future, in fact, if you haven't liked us on Facebook yet, go and like us on Facebook, please. Go on, you can go do it, because I'm just going to bring it up. Because
Kooky, you're not only tardy this time, mate, but you're in the wrong class. You're in the wrong period. It's 9 o'clock.
There we go. I've already changed the thing on the Facebook page. You can see it right there. Big Hairy News, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. So this is how we're starting the year. We're starting it at 9 p.m. and we're doing Monday to Thursday. And for those of you who weren't here at the start of the show, if we have a long form conversational show, like an hour-long interview or an hour and a half or 2 hour long interview, that we cut down, the full interview will still go up on Patreon, like we've always had. And you can see Patreon going along the bottom of the screen there. And Friday night might be a space for more singular topical shows, but we're not saying there's going to be one every Friday. We're saying if there's one, we might rip it into Friday as a sort of pre-record and play out. So as you can see on your screen, if you're listening to the award-winning audio podcast, award-winning means like my dad likes it. We're going to start 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday. 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday. There you go. I agree with Ro as well. Slackers.
Yeah, he's on to us.
All a 9 p.m. start means a good
plan.
All call for another 60 minutes. Yeah. So that means when Chewy and I do take like 105 minutes to do a 60-minute show, it's not midnight. So you've got it in one. And also, actually, to be honest, we very rarely finish around 1 hour. We typically go sort of 1 hour to 1 hour 20. So even if you were the people who are joining us a bit later, you'll probably get the tail end of the show if you go to bed with us. Lovely.
Hey.
So Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. is what we're starting with. Not too much other to tell you than that. If you'd like to get on board with the team, thank you so much for the people who are patrons right now. There was a Patreon payment in January, which I kind of felt a bit guilty about because we weren't doing a show. We are back now, but we genuinely appreciate that, and it's been very useful to help pay a few bills as we go through the summer periods, internet and power and that sort of thing as well. So if you're keen to get on board and help us make this thing, then head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Other than that, Joey, anything you want to leave us with?
I'm going to put the link up again. I mentioned this conversation between the pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian guy. I'm going to put that up on the chat just because the pro-Ukrainian guy is probably one of my favorite YouTubers. He doesn't post very often, but his persona is of a drunk Scottish gay pig.
Oh, yeah.
And
fun.
his videos are very good. Sometimes he comments on politics. Sometimes he does history. He is a firm supporter of Ukraine, and he went to battle with his opposition. He's posted up almost like an after-action report of his side of things afterwards. And in that video, there is a link to the full thing, which is like, I tried listening to it and then woke up like 2 hours later, blood coming out my nose and ears because it was so stupid. But yes, if you'd like to check that out, I've just put it up in the chat now on the YouTubes.
All right, guys,
give them a follow.
The other way you can get behind us, and it's a new year, it's our first show of the year, is to tell people about us. It's a really, really good way that we can get you guys to support us. I mean, like the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page, follow me and Chewy on Twitter, and one of the hashtags we use is hashtag share our shit. So let people know what we're doing. Let people know where we are. If you like any of the commentary or content that you have on here, then put it on your social medias, direct people back to us. And as a politician recently said, who may not be able to say it for much longer, let's get into this. Is that what she said? Something like, let's do this. Something like that. I can't remember.
Let us proceed. I think
let us move forward. Oh, look at this. This is good. Actually, yeah. What do people think about 9 o'clock?
I think people like it. I think people like it.
People like it on the first night. That's not particularly. That's a soft sample size. I'm just saying. Just saying. Hey guys, so good to be with you again. Excited to be back. Me and Chewy are planning on being with you all the next 2 weeks, like as in just me and Chewy, because we want to get started. We want to kick off the year as we mean to continue. George, so people wondering about George. George is now working for a media company, and he's working evenings. So I caught up with George the other day and said to him, because you're now working evenings and you're working full time, I won't, bother you, but the door is always open. And I imagine once in a while, I'm sure George will be like, I want to come and play, and he'll pop up. But he's now working full time for a news agency in the evenings. So we probably won't see him around very much other than when he wants to come and play. Me and Chewy will mostly drive this, and I'm sure the odd time to time you'll also see a Penny Ashton or a Jeremy Elwood or a Radar or someone popping up as well to talk life, the universe, and everything about big, hairy news stories, the big, hairy, audacious news stories of the day. All right. Thank you, guys. Are you finished playing in the chat there, Chewy? Should we head off now?
Yes, absolutely.
And also remember, if you're going to share our shit, there is a full audio version of this as well that gets uploaded to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, basically straight after the show. So if you're someone who wants to watch the show, but you miss on it one night, one really easy way to follow what we do is to get the audio podcast the next day, listen to it on the way to work or whatever. And you can also engage that way. If you do listen to us on an audio podcast, then remember to rate and review us, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that's helped our algorithms go up a tad. I think I've finished selling, Chewy. We've got a fridge freezer for sale at the moment. Two lady owners, only driven on a Sunday.
Welcome to BHN, buy, sell, and exchange.
All right, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow night from, say it all with me, 9 p.m.
9 p.m. with Mr. Brittenden. Hello, Mr. Brittenden.
Yes. And yes, you did hear us on Today FM. We did some filling in, but we've done that whole story. You'll need to go back and watch this whole episode. All right, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Stay safe out there, and we will see you when we see you.